Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into one of the most chaotic, high-stakes debates happening literally right now. Who actually controls artificial intelligence, and how on earth do they do it? You know, the headlines make this look like a completely unprecedented crisis. But as you'll see, to figure out where we're going, we actually have to look in the rearview mirror.
So here's the billion-dollar question. How does a democracy govern massive, consequential private infrastructure without destroying it? Think about it. Right now, frontier AI labs hold systemic, economy-wide influence. They dictate what models exist, who gets access, and at what price. So how do we assert the public interest over something so massively influential that's owned by a handful of private companies without crushing the innovation itself?
Okay, let's dive into part one, the illusion of unprecedented. We are looking at historical patterns.
Because right now, we're seeing completely different proposals from across the political spectrum trying to solve this exact same puzzle. Look at this. Senator Bernie Sanders has proposed a public wealth fund aimed at wealth distribution. On the other hand, former President Donald Trump signed an order for federal review of advanced models, essentially acting as a capability gatekeeper. And meanwhile, the U.S. Commerce Department has directed foreign access suspensions to control who actually gets their hands on the tech. Now, we're absolutely not here to take sides on these policies. What we're doing is recognizing the reality of the moment. These examples perfectly illustrate a fractured landscape where both the executive and legislative branches are actively and honestly somewhat chaotically trying to assert the public interest.
Which brings us to part two, America's historical hybrids. A structural solution.
The structural solution we've historically leaned on is called a hybrid institution. It's an improvised entity that is neither a government agency nor a private company. It's accountable to both, but fully controlled by neither. Why should you care about this? Well, the earliest successful example is something that impacts your wallet literally every single day, the Federal Reserve. Born in 1913, it blends private commercial banks with a federally appointed board. It was a totally messy compromise forged right in the middle of a crisis. But, you know, it worked.
And the Fed definitely wasn't a one-off. Let's trace this timeline. By 1942, the Manhattan Project used private contractors under strict military command to build atomic weapons. Fast forward to 1962, and Congress spun up ComSat. This was a private, publicly traded company, but with a presidentially appointed board designed to manage global satellite communications. And then, right in our recent memory, 2020's Operation Warp Speed. The government funded it and stripped away the market risk, while private pharma companies kept the upside to build vaccines at record speed. In every single one of these historical moments, pure government control would have failed and pure private free markets would have failed. So we built hybrids instead.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Obviously, AI is not monetary policy, and it's certainly not a vaccine. But structurally, it perfectly shares the core properties with all of our historical examples. We're talking about systemic economic influence, dual-use national security capabilities, foundational, frankly uncontrollable infrastructure, and, crucially, massive private commercial upside paired with very serious public downside risk. So this hybrid model, it's absolutely 100% relevant to AI today.
Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is the twist. Part 3, the velocity problem, a unique complication.
Here is the massive complication. Our ancestors had the luxury of time. If you look on the left, the Federal Reserve took 6 full years to formalize after the Panic of 1907. ComSat, that's like years of grinding congressional debate. But contrast that deliberative pace with what we're seeing on the right. AI velocity is off the charts. Advanced AI models iterate and advance so rapidly that they outpace and outdate governance structures before those structures are even operational. It's kind of like trying to pave a road while a race car is already driving on it. The traditional institutional machinery we have is just fundamentally too slow for AI's hyperfast disruption cycle.
So where does that leave us? Part 4, the coming AI structure, the next framework.
Because of that insane velocity, this new framework isn't just going to arrive tied up in a neat little congressional bill. Instead, look at the key players here: the Pentagon, the intelligence community, the Commerce Department, the National Security Council, and the Treasury. Each one of these executive agencies has entirely distinct equities, completely different access requirements, and their own security priorities. It's actually the internal, behind-the-scenes competition between these specific groups that will ultimately shape our final AI hybrid, probably just as much as any actual legislation ever will.
So the crucial point you really need to take away here is this quote right here. Entities built under emergency conditions, justified by temporary necessity, have a tendency to persist. Just like the post-war uranium enrichment protocols that lasted for decades, whatever improvised, duct-taped structure we scramble to build right now to handle AI, yep, it's probably going to be around for a very, very long time.
Which brings us right up to the ultimate question. What kind of hybrid are we actually going to live with for the next several decades? See, the debate isn't really about whether public authority will assert itself over AI. That is already happening, right now, in real time. The real question you should be asking yourself is exactly who this new, permanent AI hybrid will be accountable to. Think about that as you watch the tech evolve this week. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and remember, keep questioning the structures around you.